I think that one of the skills that a chief learning officer and really any head of people right now is curator. I do think that part of our job, years ago when I first started in this career, we had to come up with a lot of content and pull together different frameworks and models of working. And now we have so much of that available online. It's more contextual now. So I think it's being able to curate the right kind of content at the right time with the right people in the right context. One of my main jobs is to make sure that whatever we're encouraging people to learn and whatever skills we want people to build, that it's relevant and within the context of what our business is trying to build.
So today, I have a guest that is instrumental in helping you elevate your business, helping you grow professionally and personally, and so that and help you learn to take your business and your career to the next level. So before I go any further, let me introduce you to the Chief Learning Officer at Udemy, Melissa Daimler. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Terrific. So, Melissa, I had just said to you for the brief time we were talking before we came online here is I personally think, now I don't have the inside scoop, but just from the outside looking in, I think you have one of the most interesting jobs on the planet because for me, anybody that is involved with helping people learn and grow, learn skill sets, stretch outside their comfort zone, I just think is of incredible value and service to anybody who wants to thrive in today's world. And quite frankly, if you're not learning, I think you're dying. That might sound a little harsh, but I really feel strongly about that. So my question to you is, tell us something about yourself. Oh, for the people that are listening, she's giving me this funny look. Tell me something about yourself, Melissa, that has influenced who you are today that most people don't know about. They can't read it on Google. They won't find it in your book. Something that very much shaped who you are and the woman and the professional you've become, but most people don't know about it.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's great
Oh,
to
you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. And I tell a lot of stories in the book, but probably a story that a lot of people don't know is I'm half Swedish, and I first started going to Sweden when I was 7 years old, and went with my father to visit and meet my grandfather for the very first time.
Okay, so excuse me. So your dad was Swedish, I take it.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, for the people that are listening, I can tell you, I absolutely see the Swedish. Like when she said Swedish, I wasn't sitting there like shocked. Okay.
So I think I'm from the Midwest. I grew up in Wisconsin, and I think
Oh, really? Where? Two of my
Madison.
kids went to Wisconsin.
Madison. Yeah, it's a great city.
That city. Great city. Did you go to school there?
I did not, because all of my friends went there. So I wanted to
God forbid.
break
And
out
the tuition would have been
and
too
go to
inexpensive.
Minnesota. Yeah. So I didn't go too far away, but it is a great school. It's a great place to grow up, and good people. And I think
very nice people. Very nice people.
What happened when I went to Sweden is that I was so curious and overwhelmed with the different ways of living on the other side of the world. I had a lot of questions. And
now you're 7, you said.
I was 7. Yeah.
I'm just curious, why did you not go before 7?
I don't know if we could afford it. I think this was kind of the age limit that my dad wanted to. I was the youngest of the three children. I have an older brother and older sister
Okay.
went. My grandpa visited us, but this was the first time. I don't
Okay.
think I would have appreciated it younger. My
Okay.
dad, of course, went, but uh, this was an age where I think I could truly appreciate and connect with my grandpa and relatives over there. So I think there were a lot of opportunities for me just to learn about a different culture and a different set of customs. And, I think it was the first time I had ever gone in a plane for 12 hours. And,
Oh,
uh,
wow. Is it that long? A flight from the
yeah,
Midwest?
yeah.
Wow.
So I had a lot of questions just about the how our luggage got there and uh the my grandpa served uh raw herring, which is a dish over there. Like I didn't love that, but I wanted to experiment with
Smells too, right?
what everybody was eating. My some of my relatives wore the traditional costume, so I had a lot of questions around that. They
So
obviously
describe what the costume is. The are we allowed to use the word costume? It's the native garb?
Sure. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's just a my aunt wore it. It's a red and yellow dress with a little kind of white apron and a white hat, and
Oh, oh.
it's beautiful and everything.
It's wool. Is it wool? Made of wool?
I think so. They
Yeah.
hand make everything.
Mhm.
And I also just appreciated the language. Like I obviously didn't know Swedish. My dad had learned when he
By
was
the
in.
way, excuse me, Melissa, the irony's not lost on me. I'm saying this for the listeners, that you're wearing a sweater that's red and yellow.
Oh, I didn't do that on purpose.
No, I know, but it's
Yeah,
just amazing how that
yeah,
works.
yeah. I so I just appreciated the way that my world had opened up, that I had learned a lot about my family, but the opportunity to experience it and really ask a ton of questions. I was a very curious child, and I think that's one of the reasons, many reasons I went into learning and organizational development because I not only like learning, but I was very much interested in all of the different pieces of this system. And I think that's been one of the themes of my career is systems thinking. I have a
Okay, hang on
story.
one second. Tell
Oh,
me what you mean by that as it relates to being a 7-year-old in a different country.
uh, I think that I obviously did not say at 7 years old, I'm a systems thinker, but I think I was always trying to piece together what everything meant. Why do we eat what we're eating, and why are they speaking in a different language? And then mostly when I met a lot of different family members, I was trying to piece together how we were all connected and what uh what was the link to my great aunt and my grandfather, and how was my dad linked with his cousins. And um it was fascinating to me that here I was growing up in the Midwest in the United States, that there was this whole other kind of system of human beings and activities and traditions that I was connected to that I didn't know before.
Now,
And
hang
so
on one second, because you're younger than me, but it's sounding and feeling like this was right before like the internet took off, where you would have been FaceTiming with your family over there.
I did not know
Yeah,
this. No,
yeah, interesting.
I am that old that we were not FaceTiming with my
Yeah.
family.
No, you're not
I,
old at all, but
yeah.
younger people are listening saying, well, why didn't she just
Oh yeah,
Google
we did
them?
not do FaceTime. No,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had this was in the days where my grandfather wrote letters to me before we met. So, and we continued obviously after, even more so because we then had a face-to-face connection. So yeah, I did not have any experience with my family in Sweden until we met in person. And so, I think just to sum up here, I think uh the story as it relates to me is that I again have always been a curious learner and wanting to learn about different things around the world. And I think that trip and the connection to my family was the impetus to that. And then really understanding and craving the connection of how things work together. And I think if you take that back to my career, I've always been a systems thinker who's been really looking at how do all these parts work together? How does the organizational structure impact, the team working well together? How does in my book, I talk a lot about the why, what, and how. How does the mission, the why, relate to strategy, the what that relates to the how, which is the culture. And so if those aren't all connected, the overall system isn't working as effectively together as if you're just looking at one of the parts working. So that's a story that has a lot of meaning for me. I was very close to my father. He has since passed away, and was very close to my grandpa. And we were pen pals up until his death. So I still have cousins over in Sweden that I keep in touch with and that I'm very close to.
So it sounds like you're looking for patterns and the overlying or the underlying common denominator, which certainly I hear it in the way you just said, the why, the how, and the what. But I am curious, how did your parents meet? Was it a war story? Your mother, I take it, was American.
Well, no, my father came over he came over I can't remember. I think he was younger. He was, I think, 10. And so he grew up in the US, but then my grandparents went back to Sweden after he went to school.
So he
was born in Sweden, came over.
And English both.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So your parents met in the States. Okay. And is he the only one in his family here?
Yes. My dad passed away. We still have relatives over in Sweden, but yeah, there's nobody here in the US anymore.
Okay. So help me understand, to talk a little bit about, I think I'm going to be fascinated by this, so Sweden, are they a socialist country? Is that right? Socialism? It's not capitalism, right?
Yes, I would say they're more on the socialist
side. Yeah. Right. No judgment, just definitely different. Europeans have a very different attitude towards work-life balance, all that stuff, right? I would suggest we're probably two opposite ends of the spectrum. Like Americans, like we'll work till our death, and the Europeans are like, not so much. But how did your Swedish influence from your time there, learning the culture, having family there, how did that influence your work as a professional here in the States?
I would say it's more influenced through my father and, also of course through my mom. But I did appreciate the ways of living in Sweden, and I do think they are doing it better than we are in the US.
In a lot of ways.
I think they value family a lot more. They've set up their system to make it a lot easier to have children and to have.
So do they have the year maternity leave? Is it Sweden or Denmark?
I'm sorry, what?
Is it Sweden or Denmark that has the year maternity leave for women when you have a baby?
They both do. They both do.
Isn't that awesome? Lord, that would have made my life a lot easier.
So I just think they have that down. And I think a lot of the values that Sweden has just around family were definitely passed on through my dad, and just his, I would also say just his way of quietly leading and, ever influencing in a way that wasn't so explicit and in your face, but just, when he talked, we all listened because he didn't talk all the time and he didn't feel a need to contribute to every conversation. But when he did, it was impactful. And so I just learned a lot about leadership and uh, how to influence without necessarily having to be front and center, uh,
Mhm.
but really thoughtfully uh, contribute to a conversation or a situation in a way that was going to have a positive impact.
Yeah, I mean, you were reminding me again, we'll date ourselves, the old E.F. Hutton. When E.F. Hutton talks, people listen,
Mhm.
right? And there is, to your point, and I can't imagine anybody arguing this, but it could be, there's so much noise today. There's so much noise out there. So how do you cut through the noise and be able to, as a chief learning officer,
Mhm.
extricate the maybe the pearl and the oyster, or just the pearl itself?
I think that one of the skills that a chief learning officer and really any head of people right now, and I've said this for a while, is curator. I do think that part of our job, years ago when I first started in this career, we had to come up with a lot of content and pull together uh, different frameworks and models of working. And now that's it. We have so much of that available online.
Mhm.
It's more contextual now. So I think it's being able to curate the right kind of content at the right time with the right people in the right context. And so my job, one of my main jobs is to make sure that whatever we're encouraging people to learn and whatever skills we want people to build, that it's relevant and within the context of what our business is trying to build. And so an example is, we're in the middle of 2024 planning right now, and we're still going through a lot of change as a company. We've been shifting a lot in the last couple of years since I've been here, from a focus on the consumer, direct to consumer, to businesses. We have about 15,000 customers that we're working with.
Meaning business customers,
Yeah.
business.
And
Oh,
and so, a lot of them are trying to figure out what is the learning strategy that'll work for me and my company. What is it that I'm trying to build? And one of the things that we say is, really be clear on the skills that you want every employee to learn,
mhm,
regardless of function or level or geography. And so we're looking at three skills that we're going to focus on next year, and they're around decision making, change leadership, and coaching. And so we're building out learning experiences for every employee globally to really enable them to build and learn about how to make better decisions. How do I coach? How do I actively listen? How do I ask good questions? How do I really help my team move through change effectively? So
mhm,
there's a ton of other skills that we can, encourage employees to build, but those are the primary focus areas for next year. So a lot of CLOs and companies are really trying to do that more. Like, how do I curate? How do I get super clear about the skills needed based on what we're trying to accomplish as a business next year?
Okay, so I'm struck by what you said because that's so in my wheelhouse. I mean, my tagline is all success is based upon your ability to create, nurture, and sustain healthy relationships, right?
Mhm.
And to me, it's trust, emotional intelligence, and effective communication. And everything you just said, active listening, leadership, change leadership to me is, I understand what you're saying, but it's almost redundant, right? Because the only constant, my gosh, is change. What made you, as a company, pick those three specific areas?
We are going through quite a bit of change next year. We have quite a few leaders at the top that, we're still kind of integrated into the organization. We're shifting, a lot of our ways of working with AI now. So we have
Mm.
an AI bot that we're putting into our product. We're thinking about how to use AI in our everyday work to become more effective. We're looking at, kind of shifting our practices as a team. The whole kind of what got you here is not going to get you there is something that we're working with a lot of leaders around. So I think our whole business model is changing. So, and we have to be more agile in this world to be able to navigate what's happening. So I think change was pretty easy. Coaching is a skill that I feel everybody should have, whether you're a people manager or an individual contributor. I think we're realizing that, in order for us to move through change effectively, that is something that every employee needs to hone and practice. And then we've gotten a lot of feedback from our engagement surveys and a number of different ways that we get feedback from employees that we're not as clear around decisions and who makes decisions and how those decisions get made and how to help people clarify once a decision is made, who's part of that project or initiative. And so that's why we chose decision making.
Speak to how much the ability to get buy-in impacts what you just described and how you how you teach that.
How you teach buy-in?
Well, you have to get for anything that you just described to have to work, truly work. You have to have the buy-in from the top down.
I think, yes, I think that
otherwise it's command and control.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of this is just being super clear about the why and context on, you're talking about bringing people along. And so I think if you get clear on this is where we're going, which we've outlined, these are our 6 objectives. This is why we're focusing on these 6 objectives. Then as a team, you're focused on those. Here's what we expect from all of you as employees and leaders. And then here's what you can expect from us in helping you achieve those outcomes. And so I think the buy-in is, where that comes in is just being super clear about the why and the role that everybody plays and how we're all going to work together to do that versus, to your point, just declaring this is what we're doing, this is what you're supposed to be doing, and you're going to do it or else. I mean, nobody wants to work in a place like that.
Right. But they still really exist. A lot of them. A lot of them.
Unfortunately, yes.
So how do you, you're trying to, in terms of content creation, right? I mean, I don't envy you. You're trying to play checkers. You're trying to play chess, right? So that you can be steps ahead so that when a company has their people go on to Udemy, that the content they need at the moment is available. So how do you decide who creates that content? Like what area of expertise does your content creator have to have?
Well, our business model is such that our creators are not employees of Udemy. They are independent contractors who can put content on our platform. And there's a set of guidelines that we obviously have. But because of that flywheel, we're not a publishing house. So they're able, like for AI, we were one of the first platforms to have the most relevant and recent courses on AI because we had instructors who were well ahead of the curve and what was coming. And so they could put courses on our platform that everybody immediately wanted to leverage because everybody knew that this big wave of AI was coming. So for our Udemy business model, we definitely curate the content and do a little bit of QA to make sure that it's the right content for businesses. But, again, we don't go through every single course and make sure that every piece of content is consistent with how we would do it. We want instructors.
Oh my gosh, that would drive you crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that again, we have guidelines, and we actually have a model where the people who take our courses get to give feedback. So we
Mhm.
monitor
Oh, I've
that.
taken plenty of them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
if you give a 4.0 or under, we that's a red flag for us. And so
Mhm.
we take a look and say, hey, we definitely pull courses off of our platform if that's consistent feedback that we get. So we monitor that way. But yeah, I mean, what I love about the model is that we do give an opportunity for people who have uh different like a different set of skills and expertise that we don't have internally.
Mhm. I think that's great. How how do this is a silly question. My question was going to be, who is your ideal client? Is it the individual entrepreneur, solopreneur? Is it, the chief people officer that signs up for, I coach and consult both for entrepreneurs and corporate, right? And I know one of the companies I have, they they use Udemy. Their people are allowed to get some kind of specific content.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm just curious, what do you prefer for your client? And is it based upon what's more profitable? I would imagine it's more profitable if you have a 3,000 employee company signs up and the people use your services versus the one-on-one. I mean, I'm amazed at what great content is on that site,
Mhm.
pretty much for free. It's in a
Mhm.
lot of times. It's just it blows me away.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely still want, individuals to go on the platform. We have kind of individual plans, what we call personal plan, but we also have team plans. So if you happen to just be on it in a company and then you decide that you want your team to be on it, you can go into that. And then that sometimes evolves into an enterprise plan. So I think ideally we work with companies to map whatever skills they're trying to build to our courses. And so I know for me as a learner, if my colleagues are also learning something similar to me and have access to information that we can then discuss and talk through, that's a much more robust learning experience
Mhm.
than if I'm just watching a video by myself.
Mhm.
And so we're encouraging a lot more active learning. We have assessments. So technical learning is a big component on our platform, but also, as you said, we have a whole suite of business and leadership courses that people leverage. So it's the usually the CTO or the CLO that we're talking to
Mhm.
really figure out how do we provide courses to augment, whatever kind of learning strategy you're trying to build out. And then how do we continue to build ways for your learners to be more active through assessments, through labs, through feedback from instructors? We're also testing this next year. How do we know if somebody has achieved a business skill? We have a lot of work on the technical side of the house through badging and certification and assessments, but it's harder, as you know, to identify if somebody's proficient in communication or emotional intelligence. So we're looking at building a number of tools that will help us identify people in demonstrating their emotional intelligence and then being able to then get certified or badged on, I'm verified or I can validate that I understand and have the skill set of somebody who is emotionally intelligent.
I mean, I think that's great, and that's a hard thing to do.
Hard thing to
I
do.
think it's Tony Robbins that says, there's a huge difference between knowing cognitively and knowing from an emotional perspective, right? And I know in my work, I work with really smart people, and they can espouse from now until tomorrow concepts,
Hmm.
but being able to operationalize it, quite frankly, to me, is the coaching and consulting work that I do. right?
For
Like, so
sure.
here, like maybe something even easier than emotional intelligence. They had to have a difficult conversation. You can role play that,
Hmm.
right? But people still don't know how to have a difficult conversation.
Yeah.
Like if it's a sit down and it's a ridiculously outdated yearly performance review, total prejudice on my part. I think they're ridiculous. You can have the difficult conversation, but I believe those kind of reviews should be ongoing. I think people should be aware of how their work is going as their work is going. And sometimes that's in the moment, and that's harder to then articulate the difficult conversation in a way where it comes across as helpful feed forward, as Marshall Goldsmith would say, as
Hmm.
opposed to negative feedback,
Right.
and I see that constantly as a challenge. How do you address that in what you're describing now?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, we're nowhere near having an assessment ready, but I think, in previous companies where I have worked, the classic way to do that is 360s are so good because you are getting feedback and a viewpoint not just through self attestation, but through your peers and through your manager. And
Mm,
so I think there's some really good 360s out there. Oh,
mm.
you of course can uh, customize it based on the skills and behaviors that you want to reinforce in your company. And so I've done that at both Adobe and Twitter, where I was before. And I think those are the best ways right
May
now.
I challenge you, Melissa?
Sure.
Okay. And I do want to talk about Adobe and Twitter. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Um, I find 360s are an absolutely bureaucratic monstrosity of an expensive tool that keeps HR churning. I just find them absolutely, just my own opinion. Doesn't mean there's not valuable information in there, but it's quite time consuming and lengthy. What I like is when you're coaching someone or working with them and you say, you know, go to, you can go to 6 people, 2 lateral, 2 above, 2 below, and say, I'm being coached or I'm trying to get better. What do you suggest? What do I need help with? How can I improve? You listen, they come back to you, you work on it. You, the coach, person being coached, the employee, goes back to those people. So, in essence, not exactly, but you're getting real time feedback as you go along with people as you're working with them or as your supervisor is hearing about how your work is going.
I think I mean, of course, that's great as well. I don't know if everybody always feels like they're in a safe, psychologically safe place to get that feedback. I
Fair
think
enough.
and
Yeah.
can be biased. And I also think that 360s are a way to get,
360s can be biased too.
of course, but I think you can get quantitative data there based on
Mm,
skills that you're trying to develop in the
mm,
organization. There's
mm,
things that individuals want to develop, but there's also, especially if you're in an organization, there is a contract, if you will, that if you're in the organization, there are some skills that we want you to.
mhm,
And so I think in the 360s that I've done, you can customize based on the skills that
mhm,
we want to make sure everybody is
mhm.
building. But yeah, I mean, there's bias in so many different assessments for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and you always have to, right? It's like when am I allowed to say this? When you go on Amazon or you go on a book review, right? There's always going to be that one off the chart and one horrible, right? So
Mhm.
you throw the outliers out and then you have something in the middle. So in your role as the chief learning officer at Udemy,
Mhm.
right? You you are cutting edge on what people want, what people need for success. So you talked earlier about your experience with going into Sweden and that different
Mhm.
culture versus the States, right? Like one is like chillish and the States is like, more is more. And I'm a native New Yorker, like more is more is more is more. It's crazy in a lot of ways, right? And you're in California, so I don't know. I don't feel like San Francisco's as chill as it used to be either, but I could be wrong. Um, how did this influence your book that you just published? So I want you to talk about that, reculture.
So the impetus of this book was 20 plus years of being on the front lines of leadership and understanding what it looks like to have healthy and effective cultures and ones that aren't. So I had the opportunity to work in some pretty great cultures, Adobe and Twitter in particular. Twitter, as we knew it before, is no longer around.
Well, it's
And
not even called that anymore, too,
right.
right?
And so I had the opportunity, which I can call it now, to work at WeWork and understand that when you don't take culture and people seriously, that impacts the business as
Sure.
well. And so I had read so many research articles and papers and books, frankly, on culture by people who had never stepped into an organization. And so I really wanted to share my experiences, both the ones that were successful and ones that I could learn from through failure,
Mhm.
and how to do culture in a way that was practical, because I still think we talk about culture in a very theoretical
Yeah.
way, and it does a disservice to people leaders. It's not about the ping pong
Mhm.
games. It's not about the happy hours. It's not about the free food. It is a very big opportunity to. It's a leverage point that I don't think we always leverage. And I think culture, why I called it reculturing, is that it's a verb, not a noun. It is
Mhm.
something that we're always practicing if you do it right. And so
What is the biggest, what are the three main things, and what you talk about in your book, reculturing, that companies need to do right that perhaps they don't?
I think the three main things are that you can't just stop defining your culture at values. You have to go further and talk about the behaviors. And if I would write it today, I would also talk about skills. So, you can't just
Interesting.
say innovation, is important to us. You have to talk about what would that look like if we were innovative at Udemy. And so when we talk about always learning, for us, one of our behaviors is we engage in constructive debate because we know that when we debate each other, we're learning. Um, I think
That would be great if the rest of the country engaged in
yeah, I know.
constructive debate, right? Yeah.
For sure. And then the second one is all about processes. So how do we embed those behaviors into hiring process, onboarding process, development process, compensation process, rewards process, recognition. So I think we really need to embed, kind of behaviors into those processes, because that would give the opportunity to exemplify culture in a way that you can't if it's just values on a wall.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
the practices are, how do you communicate? How do you meet? How do you connect? How do you work day to day with your team and with your colleagues? And how do you take the opportunity to do things like, in my team meetings, we always try to have constructive debate as an example. So how do you express culture in the ways that we said are really important behaviorally?
mhm. It's interesting. I have a dear friend, and what he'll say is, "This is what we believe, or this is what I do, as evidenced by."
Hmm.
Right? So, as it's exactly what you're saying. Okay, so Melissa, I want you to unabashedly promote your book,
Hmm.
tell people where you'd like them to go to get it, and where they can learn and find out more about you.
Thank you. So I have a website, melissadaimler.com. You can read more about the book and about me there. You can go on
And Daimler is DAIMLER.
amler.com.
Okay, make sure they
Yeah.
get that. Mhm.
And then you can go on Amazon. So very easy. It's on there. You can also, it's in a lot of your local bookstores, hopefully, as well. If you do go on Amazon, would love for you, if you like it, to write a review, because as you said before, every review counts. So um, that's where you can find me.
Great. And I know people will absolutely love it. I think I have so many more questions, but I want to respect your
I
time.
know.
I think this topic of culture and your book reculturing is so timely. Honestly, I don't think it ever goes out of fashion.
Mhm.
And, I don't care what your business or your product is or how smart you are. If you cannot have a positive culture in your business, in your family, in your community, in your country, you're not going to lead and you're not going to succeed. You might have little battle wins, but you will lose the war. So I think this topic is so timely. So Melissa, thank you so much for
Thank
being such a
you.
great guest. I urge everybody, do not run to your computer or your bookstore and order this book.